9, you're going to actually see right here where it says solve each equation by factoring. So that's why I said we're not going to be getting away from factoring. Okay, we're going to be carrying factoring over into this unit. So first I'm going to start with what you see at the top. It says use the zero product property to solve each equation. So basically, they have already factored problems 55 and 56. You can see they're in factored form. You have a binomial times a binomial. The only thing that they have added is the equal zero. So that's why this is called the zero product property. So in order to be able to solve for something, you have to have an equal sign. So basically, they're just setting the factors equal to zero, and that's called the zero product property. So when you do your homework, it'll say use the zero product property to solve each equation. Now, let me just give you a little background on what solving means when we're talking about a quadratic equation. So when we're talking about in terms of a quadratic equation, and it says to solve, okay, solve means to simply tell where the parabola is crossing the x-axis. Okay, so really it means the x-intercept. So if I actually, draw a parabola here, and let's say this is at -2, and this is at +3, then when I say solve it by looking at a graph, you could tell what the solutions are. It would be the -2 and the +3. So again, solve in terms of a quadratic equation means to find the x-intercept. Okay, so that's what it means. You need to know what solve means. Solve means to find the x-intercept. So you can do it algebraically, which we're going to do in a minute, or if you have a graph and it says to solve, then that means you're just picking where the graph crosses the x-axis. Do not use the y-intercept. Okay, y-intercept is called y-intercept. Now, there are other names for the x-intercept, which I think we covered earlier in the year. They're called roots. Okay, you might see x-intercept. You might see the word solve. Okay, all of those words. You might see solution for quadratic. Okay, that's another word that they could use. Okay, what is the solution to the quadratic? That means x-intercept. So all of these words will simply mean the x-intercept, and you have to know that. So it's not going to say, like on your SOL test, it's not going to say, what are the x-intercepts? Okay, it's going to say solve. You have to know that means I'm looking for the x-intercepts. So going back to question number 56, so to solve this is already written now as an equation. You're going to take each one of these factors, each binomial, and you're going to set each one of them equal to 0. It's a very easy process. So you take this and you set it equal to 0. That's one of your factors. And then you take the other one and you set it equal to 0. Because now we're doing this algebraically. And then you just solve the equation. Of course, when I subtract 2 from both sides, okay, this particular parabola will cross at -2 and +1. Now, sometimes you might only, let's say both of these were the same. So if it had m plus 2 times m plus 2, then there's only one answer. Okay, you don't need to write both answers if it's the same one. So then you will put your little set brackets. Do not use parentheses because these are not coordinates. And it doesn't matter which x-intercept you write first. Okay, so these would be your solution set. Okay, same thing to 56. You would just set both of those equal to 0. If it's already been factored for you. Okay, solve it. So this one comes out to be -7/3. Okay, and this one comes out to be -5/7. Okay, so that's all it is to using the zero property zero product property. So now let's go down to where it says solve by factoring. So still solve in this case means we're finding the x-intercepts, but notice they did not factor them for you. So you have to factor. So that means you have to get it to this point right here. Okay, so you're going to get it to that point, and then you're going to follow the same process that we did at the top. So let's do 57, solve by factoring. So since the A term is 1, I do not need to do the, the X method that we've learned. So I can just look at these two numbers here. What are the factors of -5 that will equal to a +4? Now I always use X's instead of R's and stuff. So which one, there's only one pair of factors. So which one would need to be negative and which one would need to be positive? Okay, the +5 and the -1, that will give me a +4. And then you do like they did at the top. You set it equal to 0 and you solve. So x plus 5 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0. So your solutions would be -5 and -1. That should be a minus sign. So when they're like, as simple as a one-step equation, you don't necessarily have to show me that you subtract 5 from both sides and all of that. And this should be a +1. You could just simply, say -5 and +1. You don't need to show me that you add 1 to both sides and so forth. Okay. All right, so let's do one more of these. Let's do 58. So 58, again, the A term is 1. So what are some factors of -28 that will equal to -3? All right, x minus 4. Is it x plus 4 or x minus 4?
Minus 4.
I got it. It has to equal to a -3. Plus 4 and -7. Okay, because it has to equal to a -3 when you add the two together. So I'm just going to, now you do need to show me that you set both factors equal to 0. You do have to do that step, but once you do that, you can just say -4 and +7. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at 61. So see how this one says equals to 8? It cannot equal to 8. Okay, it has to equal to 0 at the end. So you're going to subtract 8, because it has to equal to 0. So now my trinomial or my quadratic equation is 2n squared minus 2n minus 40 equals to 0. Okay, so now if you want, you can do the X method here, and I'll just do it for the sake of reviewing, because some of you will have to, do some corrections on your test at a later time. So we're going to just simply go through the process. 2 times -40 will give us what? -80. What goes at the bottom? -2. Okay, now you can either think of this on your own or let your calculator help you. It doesn't matter. But what are some factors of -80, and this is kind of easy, that equal to -2? Well, 10 and 8. How can 10 and 8 equal to -2? Okay, -10 and +8. Okay, then you divide by the A term. Okay, what is the A term in this problem? 2. Okay, so what is -10 divided by 2? So we're going to say -5 over 1, because you always have to have two numbers. And then what is 8 divided by 2? So we're going to say 4 over 1. Okay, so when you write your factors, what will be my factors? Start from the bottom, okay? All right, x minus 5. Okay. All right, now, actually, guys, there was one step that we left out. Factor out the what? The GCF. What is the GCF? 2. Okay, so if I factor this out and divide everything by 2, okay, my answer is correct, but there is a 2 on the outside that has to be factored. Okay, and some of you on the test, this is the step that you forgot to do, which was to take out the greatest common factor. So I think I only took a point off if you did not do that. But you do need to always look for that. Set it equal to 0. Okay, set that equal to 0. And now, 2 does not equal to 0, so that's not a solution. So even though it's a factor, basically what we do is, and let me show you what I mean by that. So this is what you would do. This even has to be set equal to 0. But that's not a true statement, so we just put a slash through it. And then you do the other factor, you set it equal to 0. And then you do the last factor and you set it equal to 0. Okay, so all of your factors have to be set equal to 0, even the GCF. Okay, it's just not going to be part of your solution. So my final answer will come out to be 5 and -4. Okay.